What is up, Couple on Fire podcast? This is episode number 19, and today is our very first interview. How exciting, huh?
I am stoked. Okay,
Can't even contain it.
It makes us feel like we're the real deal.
Today we're actually interviewing a friend of ours. His name is Sean Romero, and he has a podcast called Faithfully Led, and that's coming up
Right now.
Are you a Christian and you are looking to take your faith, your family, and your future to the next level?
Then this is the channel for you.
All right, everybody, I'm your host, Josh, and I'm here with my gorgeous, as always, wife,
Christy,
that's right. And like we said, today we're going to do an interview, and it's actually really exciting. This gentleman is just a bleeding heart for Christ. We love it. It gives me goosebumps even saying it.
Yeah.
We had an opportunity to be on his show a while back, and we've had a lot of opportunity to really sit and do a lot of talking with him and stuff. And he's really on fire for Christ, and he's making some awesome moves in life. I really want to bring him on and share his story, let him share his story. And then we're going to break down some answers. We're going to have him answer some questions. We're going to break it down today and really dive into it. So let me get you connected with him and let's bring him on. Sean Romero. Sean, how you doing, buddy?
What's up, guys? How are you guys?
Good. Yeah, we got a little bit of applause. There we go.
Yeah.
There it is. So,
Yeah.
hey, we're really excited you're here, man. You know what? Why don't you do us a favor? Why don't you give us a little shout out maybe about who you are and where you come from? You know, what makes Sean Sean, and how did you get to where you are today, Sean? Why don't you do that for us, buddy?
Yeah, absolutely, man. So, I'm originally born and raised in New York City, man, and, inner city kid. Dad was a bus driver, mom was a housewife, and, just started growing up, military family. And, I just ended up decided to join the military in 2000. I've always was an avid aviation enthusiast, loved aviation. I am that kid that when you talk to people and say, if they saw Top Gun in 1986 and they wanted to be a pilot, that's me right here. I was that guy. Okay. And so I ended up, joining the military in 2000 and September 12th of 2000, mind you. And, became a mechanic on F-16 fighter jets here in Atlantic City, New Jersey. And I was in the military for 17 and a half years. 14 of those were in the F-16 squadron, and 3 of those I flew for the Air Force as a flight engineer on the KC-10 as a flight engineer, going around the world, doing some cool stuff, refueling jets, hauling cargo, that sort of stuff. And then, things just kind of, started falling apart a little bit. Got married and now I'm divorced, a single dad of 3. And I've been through a heck of a lot, man, battle with, depression, anxiety, PTSD. And along the way, along my journey, I learned how to, I became a John Maxwell coach, a certified John Maxwell coach, leadership coach. It's something I'm huge. I mean, I really thrive on, something I'm very passionate about besides airplanes. As you can see over my shoulder right there, that was my F-16 that I crewed personally. That had my name on it, and that actually was over Ground Zero not too long after 9/11. So, it's something that I'm very, very passionate about. When it comes to those things, and I just wanted to be able to, God put it on my heart after my divorce in 2018, after I got out of the military, just to go and lead men and to lead men into not only just to God, but out of this depression, to break that stigma of mental health, of mental instability and all that other stuff, because there's a lot of outlets, for women and things like that, but there really isn't for men. Men just really have to be, hey man, you got to put on your shoulders, strap on your boots and get at it, and rock out. But there really isn't that. So I really want to transform that image, transform the leadership in the Christian community from that aspect, to bring in that fresh leadership perspective and really just to basically change people at their core, but in their communities. And that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've talked before, Sean, too. First off, we want to thank you for your service. We know that doesn't come lightly, and that comes at a great cost. And that's why it's amazing that, you're really stepped up and you're really trying to make a difference with something that you actually truly do understand. So we really want to thank you for your service for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
That's big. That's a big price to pay for our freedom. So we really want to thank you for that. But, when it comes to leadership, and it does come with the price that has to be paid, you could have chose anything to do. You could have chose to, go on and go into the armed forces out of the military. You could have a lot of different options and stuff. But what you did decide to do is you decided to do something that actually is hard to do. It's something that we try to do, and that's to make a large noise in a large area, and that's by choosing a podcast. And you've decided to take the hard, grindy route and start up a podcast. And it's Faithfully Led. It's Faithfully Led podcast. Tell us a little bit about that. Where did that come from? How long has that been going on, and what keeps you going doing it?
Faithfully Led came from, I tried to do a podcast before that, and it was called Viper Lead. And the reason why I called it that was because the F-16 is called the Viper. And so, they're usually the first ones in. They're the leaders to go in. So that's why I kind of, at that point, that's what my image was. That's what my persona was. I was the F-16 guy. I was the military guy. I was the airplane guy. I really wasn't listening to God, what God was telling me who I was, and it wasn't until after I got out and got into, my divorce and everything, where I started listening to God. And a friend of mine was like, hey, you should probably change the name and kind of do more, because you're more just all about faith. And I'm like, that's a good point, and I really prayed on it, and that's where Faithfully Led came from. And so, I started start, because just like anything else, I started tend to put a lot of things ahead of God, what I thought what it was about, the monetary stuff and just all the other problems that life was throwing at me. And I never really kind of just put it at the feet of God, but God kept throwing it in my face like, hey man, you got that voice. You got that. I already gave it to you. You don't need to do anything else. I already gave it to you. It's right there. Go and do it. So finally, it really took like basically a direct order, if you want to call it, and I was like, all right. So I picked up the ball and ran with it. And so when I was praying about what I wanted to do with it, I wanted to give not only other entrepreneurs, but other Christians that platform to not only discuss what they went through as Christians to get where they are as entrepreneurs, but how they're making impacts in the Christian community. And that's where I wanted to really change that leadership perspective and saying, hey, this is where I want people to go. Because when I do one-on-one training directly with men, it's a very specific thing. It's a very specific, either about, dealing with PTSD, dealing with depression, dealing with that anxiety, but you can't completely just do that. You can't cut off everything. So the podcast is really for that. It's that platform so other Christians can come on and say, hey, this is what we're doing in our community. This is where we are. And this is, come look for us. And I wanted to give that voice. And God really told me, said, give them that voice, give them that platform, so that way they can, perform for me. Because that's what it's all about. That's really what it's all about.
Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds like you're passionate about it. Are you passionate about it?
I love it, man. I love doing the podcast. And let me tell you something. It's a grind. It's a grind, man. Having to go out there, you do the emails, you send people out, you get the stuff. And then, as a single dad, just recently, their mom and I finally worked out a schedule and stuff like that. So I'll schedule my interviews when the kids aren't here. But before, I'd have to put them in the room. Hey, here's YouTube. You know what I mean? Here's a couple ice pops, stay in the room, don't come out, daddy's got to work. But, and so it's one of those things. It's a grind, but I love it, man. I love it. I love to be able to talk to people. I love to be able to do, because it was one of the things that I did when I was in the military. When I was in the military, I was the lead trainer. I was the training manager. I was, that lead guy. And I love doing that. I love giving tours of the base, talking about the airplane, giving that knowledge and showing people, and to see their change in their face, to see that I'm impacting them, and to be able to do that on this stage, on this level, it's a blessing, man. And I dig it. I really, really dig it. I love it.
Yeah. So the next question, that we really want to talk about, and it's something that I know my wife could speak to passionately,
I love it.
Is it's something that you talk a lot about before you even got on here. You talk about leadership, and what does Sean think? what do you think, with your experience and where you've been through in life, what do you think creates and makes a good leader, male or female, but what makes a good leader?
To be a leader, all right, so when you break it down, a lot of people think that when you're in a position, you're a leader. You're a leader. And that's half true. Once you're in that position, people think that you have to attain that position to be able to influence other people. But you're not. You don't have to do that. You don't have to, you don't need to do that. You don't need to go and be, have that title, if you will, to go and be that leader. To be a leader, you have to be, number one, you have to be humble. First and foremost, you have to be humble, because if you're not humble, they're not going to believe in what you're telling them.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you hadn't walked in their shoes, if you're understanding that you're being empathetic and you're being humble with where you're limited, they're going to want to buy into you. They're going to buy into you. Then they're going to believe you. Because there were several times where, when going back on my military service, where, some of my airmen, they were having issues that I never had to encounter. But I was saying, all right, man, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to solve it. This is, we'll ask these questions. And as long as I was there and it said up front, say, hey, man, I've never been through this. I don't know, but we're going to find this out together.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it takes to be a real leader, no matter what it is. As long as you're showing that you can do it with them and you're not using your title to sit there and boss them around saying, no. This is what I'm telling you to do. You got to do it this way. No, leadership is about being able to be open, being open-minded, being humble, but also you got to care. You have to care. And if you don't care, they're not going to care how much you know. And you could be the most brilliant guy on the block. And I'll tell you, I was pretty good at being a mechanic and as a crew chief. I was a pretty good crew chief, but I didn't know everything. And when I didn't know something and I wanted to learn, I brought some people along to learn, but then there are certain things where I did know. And I said, all right, you have to do it this way. And because of certain things, but it's not because I wanted to impart that I was in charge. It was because I wanted them to see something that was a bigger picture. And when that happened and I showed them, this is the bigger picture that I was seeing, but you were seeing just this little sliver, they understood that, So, for me to be a leader, whether you're male or female, you have to be humble. You have to be open to learning. You have to be able to sit there and understand and be empathetic, but also you have to understand not just your limitations, but you have to be able to be respectful of this position, to understand that you may be in this position. It's not because of what you did. It's what you're expected to do. My commander told me, he said, man, we're not promoting you for what you did. We're promoting you for what you're going to do.
Right. That's so
you
good.
don't go to that rank because for whatever position or rank or whatever, because of what you did. Yeah, you met all the conditions and you met all the requirements, but you haven't done this job yet. We're putting you here because we expect you to be above that, to excel above that. That's why you're there. And really, that's what it really all comes down to, building leadership.
Mm-hmm. And leadership, so much, I know that from what you're saying, what I love to do with my team and things like that is give them the vision, like visualize we're all locked arms and we're all moving in the same direction. And even if we're on the wrong page, I want us all to be on the wrong page together, because we're going to turn it together, and when your employees can, or the people that are following you or anything, can really get into the vision with you, and they are like, you're really getting in the trenches with us and you're doing it with us, they really get amped up because they want the whole team to be successful. They want you to be successful. And if you, like you said, I love how you said, when you didn't know something, you'd bring people in. And that is so, so true. I tell people all the time, if you're a leader and you're in a status where you are hiring people or people are going to be beneath you, you need to have people under you that fill your weaknesses. Don't be intimidated by that. It completes the team. And really don't ever hire someone that you wouldn't yourself work for. Like, don't be scared they're going to take your job. Like, you would, if you could see yourself working for that person, that's a person you want on your team, you know? So the things you said were so good.
Yeah, something you said that really resonates with me well as a guy is that being a good leader is having humility, being humble. And this is why I think it's so important, is we live in an age right now, and we're getting to a certain age that, the upcoming leaders are millennial, and millennials are different than we are. And we come from a different group where, when we were younger, it was why, your parents are like, you do this because I told you to, and that's it. That's the end of the story. So we're workers that do because we're told, and we ask no questions. Well, millennials aren't that. And if we're not willing to be humble and say, you know what, it's not about me and my way, it's about being productive altogether, and I have to be willing to learn and manipulate things in a healthy way to make them work, that's true leadership. So I completely agree with you when you say about humility, because for guys, it's hard. It's we don't think that way.
Sure. Absolutely. Again, I dealt with a lot of millennials when I was in, and, and the first thing I would tell them all the time is like, hey man, I really don't care what you did before here. And I don't care if you mess up. I really don't. I said, if you mess up, as long as you admit to it that you've messed up, I'm going to have your back 1,000%. I don't care if I have to go into the commander's office and explain why you screwed up, but as long as you don't lie to me, I don't care. I can cover for it. That's not a problem. We can move forward from it, but the minute you lie to me, that's when you break that trust. That's when you break that bond, and that vision. And that's like what you said, Chrissy, that vision is important, because your vision, and take again from the military perspective, is that our vision is to complete the mission. That's the mission. That's our vision. Our vision is to have our jets, what's called FMC, fully mission capable, to go out there and do their job. That's our mission. But in life, our mission may be to have a successful business, to have a successful family, to be able to overcome adversity, to be able to adapt to the different things that are happening. Like looking at what's going on now, this pandemic, we have to adapt to that. And if you're not able to adapt to that, or to see the vision and continue to see that vision while you are going through this, you can never, that's when the anxiety builds, and that's when the frustration builds. And it's okay. But if you don't have that vision, or if you're not sharing that vision, and if you're not clear on that vision, as a leader, you're failing. And that's important. It's important. And with millennials, when you're talking, you're definitely talking a different language, but there's still common ground that you could be there and sit there and say, hey man, you may see it this way, but if you can sit down and have a conversation with someone, you don't have to agree with them. That's okay. But you have to sit there and understand where they're coming from, so that way you can still bridge that gap. There were so many times where I had discussions where like, no, we're not doing it this way because I've done it this way all the time. But they may have have a better way of doing it. I just didn't see it. But when they explained it to me, I was like, oh yeah, that'll work. Let's go do that. You know what I mean? If it means me working less and getting the job done, let's do it. You know what I mean? I'm all for it. But it's the same thing in leadership. You got to be able to communicate. You have to be able to empathize. But the communication really does come from the heart. It really comes from your character. And if you're not leading from that character, if you're not stable in that character, you're failing as a leader.
So powerful. So that leads us into the third and final question we want to ask you. I think this is going to be, in my eyes and in my heart, I think this is one of the most powerful ones. What and how has your faith been a part of your journey so far?
Everything. It's abundantly about everything. And I will say this, it was very difficult in the beginning to really understand it, because as I named Faithfully Led, the definition of faith is to believe in the unknown, that knowing that that's going to be real. And, as Christians, we're given this book, and we're said that this thing was written over 2,000 years ago. And by so many different, there's 66 books in it, and it's written by so many different people, but we have to have faith that it's all God's word. And it's been passed down from generation to generation and generation and generation, civilization, and we have to have that faith. And so anything that's a part of you that you're going to do it, that you have to be, your faith has to be the center of it, because you don't know what it's going to happen. You don't know if it's going to work out. You don't know if it's going to work out the way you want it to. But that's the point. It's not supposed to work out every single time the way you want it to.
Mm-hmm.
As believers, we have to have faith that it's going to work out the way God wanted it to, the way God wants it for it to work out. Not so much that I wanted it to work out to be, I was going to be a fighter pilot. I was going to be, an airline pilot. I was going to have all this other stuff. And, I couldn't, it didn't happen for me. God said, no, you're good. You're a better mechanic. Now I did get to fly an F-16. I did get to do that, but I would have been a horrible fighter pilot because that wasn't what God wanted me to do. And no matter how many things I did, if I was doing it for my agenda, and everyone has agenda. And I say this a lot, everyone has an agenda, but if your agenda isn't God's agenda, then you're doing it for the wrong reasons. And that's where that faith comes in, man. And my faith, there's times where, it hurts. There's times where it doesn't align. And I have to sit down and humble myself to understand what he wants. Then everything becomes clear. Then everything becomes, more at ease, because I've been there where I've been a half hour from being evicted, where I've had my car taken from me. I've had all these things. Look, I had my marriage taken from me. I've had all this other stuff. But the one thing that's always been my rock has been my faith. I literally signed, I left the military February 8th, 2018, signed my divorce papers February 13th. And then I was baptized in my church February 17th. So, if that's not a testimony to faith, then I don't know what is.
Amen.
So faith, that's my rock. That's my everything, man. That's my everything.
Yeah, I think, and you can just tell the way that you say it that, it's not just something you believe in, it's something that you are. And, when we tell people, we believe in God, it's so little of believing in God and all of following him, really encompassing. Christy says something that, she brings up that's from the Bible. It says that, the followers would follow so close behind Jesus that the dust of his sandals would kick up onto them. That's how close that those followers were to Jesus, and that's when we make that choice of faith to really be that close to who Christ is, we really get to see the real fruit. And I love how you said, fruit isn't necessarily what I want, but my desires become his desires. And when that happens, we truly do become fulfilled. You may not have been able to become the pilot the way that you thought that you wanted to, but God had something so much better for you. And we just don't know that. So, sure. You sharing your faith and, reaching out into a market of such great need is so well appreciated, that crowd of people, guys like me, I can't relate. I want to relate, but I would be lying to myself if I thought that I could truly do them a service the way that you do. It's just impossible for me, so you're needed, you're loved. I mean, it's an amazing thing that you're doing. We really, really, really do appreciate you. And we got one more question. I'm going to throw you a zinger here.
I have something I wanted to say first.
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Because I have a zinger for you.
Go for it, Christy. Yeah, come on. Throw that elbow in there. You got
I know. I'm like, oh my gosh. No, I loved what you talked about, that your faith is so important to you. And you talked about how God has so much more for you. And what I think is key in all of that a lot of people that may be watching this or in the future will watch this, is to understand that when things don't work out the way that we want, and then we have it to what God wants, he gives us that peace that surpasses all understanding. And it's actually so much more contentment in that when we're so busy trying to get our own plans going. Even when we're on the right path and we're moving forward, it's very chaotic. And when we're on the path that God intended us to be on, even when things are getting thrown at us that aren't going to work out, it's so much more calming. It's just a peace that I'm on the right path. I have all these walls coming up in front of me, but I'm not knocking them down. The Holy Spirit is knocking them down. And that is what is so amazing about just falling into God's arms, God's plan for your life, and accepting and letting him use you and just be bumper, the bumper things and bowling, just bump, 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 bump. You just keep going down the path and he'll just bump you along. So I love that you said that.
It is powerful. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I know.
man.
Sorry, I got focused.
He got so like
I
laser
did.
focused. He does that too.
I do. I'm
You
really.
both were like this. Like, whoa.
We're there, man. We're there.
All right. So, if you could give one piece of advice, not to a non-Christian, but to a Christian,
Yeah.
that you could give, and it was only one piece of advice to help them take their faith, their family, or their future to the next level, what would that piece of advice be to them?
Great question. To always understand that the grace of God is always enough,
Yeah.
and that is always in abundance. That there's never a lack. There's never anything that's ever going to really hold you back. Society is going to tell you that this book or this wall is thicker than anything else. But when you look at it and you turn it to the side, it's nothing but an illusion.
Yes.
That,
That's so good.
Don't fall into the trap of, and understand that you're going to have great people that surround you that are going to be believers and non-believers alike. But the minute you start following them and then you start cutting that corner and you start saying that, well, they're doing this, so it's not going to be too bad. You know what I mean? That's when you start really breaking that connection to God. And that's when you start losing that faith. And we all do it. I'm guilty of it too,
Yep.
But that's when we really have to become more grounded. But once you have that, you have to have that foundation, and that foundation is faith.
Yeah.
And understand that, and that foundation of faith, you're going to receive everything, no matter what you do wrong, no matter how many times you screw up. I screw up daily, it's going to happen. It's a mathematical certainty, but it's about having that connection, having that foundation, and understanding that it's not about a religion, because it isn't. It's a relationship, and it's a personal one. And it's probably the greatest personal relationship you'll ever have, greater than your one you have with your children. And I'm speaking as a father, whether it's as your spouse, husband, wife, girlfriend, whatever. That relationship is going to last and permeate through everything. And that right there, you have that, and you look for that. You have that foundation, that relationship. That's that glue. There's nothing that's going to stop you.
Yeah.
There's nothing. There's nothing that the public is going to tell you. There's nothing that your best friend's going to tell you.
Yeah.
There's nothing ever that's going to break that bond of truth, because there's going to be people that are going to tell you that, no, you got to do this. You have to act this way. If you don't think this way, you're wrong. You're a bad person. And that's all lies. And that's all Satan trying to break that bond.
That's right.
But the minute you start going that direction, you're helping to break that bond. But the great thing is that once you're rooted and you have that foundation, you can go that way. That's fine. Just like an airplane can get blown off course. But the minute you kick that rudder over and you point that nose back in that direction and you start heading back in that direction, whether you try to intercept that line, you're going to intercept that line.
Yeah.
And then you're going to be right back on course. And he's going to be there with open arms.
Yeah. So good.
Well said. Hey, tell us where we can find you. Where are you located at, other than just faithfullyled.Sean? Like, where can we find?
He's located in Jersey.
Come knock on the door.
If you are ever down here in South Jersey, if you guys are ever down here in South Jersey, you fist bump. Yeah, there we go. If you're ever down here in South Jersey, come down, check it out. I go to Fusion Church. Come and please, come worship with us. And you can even find us online, fusionchurch.cc. That's a great place. Come worship with us online, especially during this, crazy times that we have.
Yeah.
But you can find me on Facebook, faithfullyled.Sean on Facebook. Find me on Instagram, faithfully _led. I'm redoing the website, so the website isn't up, but you can email me at Sean, SEAN, at faithfullyled.com. And also a very good friend of mine, Lathan Kraft. He and I, someone that I actually interviewed, he was a pastor out of California. I'm an avid reader. I love to read. Okay. So he's a big reader too. And we decided to do a book club, and it's called the Coast to Coast Reading Collective. And you can find me there. It's ctcrc.us. And you can email me directly there too. And every month we're going to have a new book. And so for the inaugural
That's awesome.
book, we are actually reading this. It's a Christian book called, When Life Gives You Lemons. It's a really quick book by Gerald Fadiomi. I know I'm probably butchering his last name, but I apologize.
Sorry, Gerald.
But you guys, what's going to happen is we're going to interview the author, and we're going to have a podcast where we're going to be talking to the author directly live, and we're going to talk to him and ask him questions, but we're going to have other people come in and ask those questions of him, because there's a bunch of people who want to, become authors, but also they were going to read the book and want to learn a little bit more things. And like I said, this is a Christian book, so it's a great way for Christians to kind of come together and, have that collective. So guys, go ahead and check me out there too. So,
Yeah.
Thanks, Sean.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, we appreciate you being here, buddy. We're just really excited that you were able to be our first interviewee.
You're number one,
That's
Sean.
it.
You're number one.
Number one.
Yes.
It's gonna be in Facebook land forever. It'll be on YouTube forever. So
forever.
Love it.
So we just really want to thank you for being here.
No, thank
He's gone.
No.
such amazing things, not only for God, but the community, and stuff like, and everything that you guys do. It's amazing. And you guys, you guys are pioneers, man. So I really appreciate you guys. So thank you so much for me, giving me the time and being able to bless me with, with your time. Thank you so much.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, so that's all for today's episode. Please do not forget to like and follow. Please share the episode too. It helps us gets us more. Put that thumb up. Helps us get more exposure on Facebook. Them dirty algorithms trying to keep us down, trying to keep us away.
Algorithms trying to put us under the thumb.
That's it, trying to keep us down. So if you could, though, please share it out, and please make sure you connect to Sean Romero, Faithfully Led. Get his podcast. Check it out. Man's got reviews on Apple. He's jamming it out. He's rocking it. We're excited that we're able to do this today.
We love him.
Yeah, and he's an awesome guy. So we will see you guys next week.
Yes.